What's going on, everyone? And in this episode I'm going to be going through some considerations which I think are pretty important when you're doing a fitness shoot outdoors. Too much of a difference between doing a fashion shoot or a normal shoot outside, but I think there are just a few key things where I think you should keep in mind. It's going to be aimed towards people using ambient light outside, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult to create those shadows on the body, which are going to make the body look really impressive. So tip number one is the time of day which you're actually shooting. So we all know that we love the golden hour where the sun is setting and it's pretty much sort of head level, and it's really complementing on facial features as well and makes everything look really great. But at this time of day, the light is really flat and really aiming for light that's want to come down on the body, and it's going to create those shadows underneath the chest, delt separation and the abs, etc. So there has been times where I've shot throughout certain times of the day where clients can't really make those sort of hours, but I always try and aim for probably just about 2 hours after the sun is up and about 2 hours before the sun is due to set. So at this sort of time, the sun is kind of at a really ideal sort of spot where it can come down. Like, it's not as good on facial features and it's not as soft, but it's kind of a balance between the two, and there are certain things you can do to kind of counteract that, which I'm going to explain in a minute. But at these sort of times, you're creating that just enough downlight to create some really nice shadows on the body, and this is so important, and clients will love you for this because you really want them to look their best. So which brings me on to my next point, and that is different ways to shoot and how to create really good light for the model. And there is one solution, and a really simple solution and a cheaper solution. This is a reflector, which is easy to transfer as well. But what I've done is I placed the model in certain sort of situations where the light isn't directly on them, but it's just enough angle so where I can put this in a certain place where I can angle it down so the sun is coming down and then reflecting off that and creating contrast and shadows all over the body, which is going to create good shadows on the body and emphasize the physique. In addition to using a good reflector and also the right time of day, we're also going to want to keep in mind that we want to make contrast on the body, and this could be done in certain sort of ways as well. And since you're outdoors, there are so many things that you can use. So the rules never change. If you put darker objects next to something, so many people probably know if you do a fitness shoot with a black backdrop or a black sort of background, is going to create a lot more contrast. So these can be transferred to an outdoor shoot as well, and you just got to look for darker sort of objects really. So probably a little bit reflective as well. And also, of course, usually most reflectors have a darker side, as Darth Vader once said. So to be honest, yeah, it's using those sort of things to your advantage to create contrast, and they'll definitely make a difference. Next tip is a pretty important one, but I think for a fitness shoot is a must, and I don't find myself doing it that often, and that's shooting in the shadows. If you're shooting purely in the shadows, it makes it a lot harder to create that contrast on the body. There are a couple of things you can do to counteract this. So say for example you can't move them into a place where you don't like, or there's a certain place which you really like but the light is not that great. Try and move them around a little bit and find some reflective surfaces, and also use your handy reflectors as well. I mean, you don't have to use one, you can use a couple of them, but angle it in such a way where you're reflecting that sun onto them, and this will make such a difference and it'll make that physique pop as well. So set aside from this, you can also add in shadows again when you do it in post-production. So things like dodge and burning, up in the shadows, etc. But there's going to be pros and cons of this, because if you're in the shadows anyway, it's going to make all the surroundings darker as well. But again, that's the thing with Photoshop. When you manipulate something like that, something else is always going to be affected. So always remember that rule as well. So I mentioned the time of day to shoot, and again, if your light source is really high, yes, you're going to create great shadows, but you're also going to create shadows around here. And if you've got protruding cheekbones, which I have as well, it creates shadows and unnecessary shadows around here, which are not really good for facial expression. So, and if you want a good fitness shoot, again, they're going to want to see their face looking great and their body. So there's two elements to really look at there. A couple of little easy solutions to this as well, and that is using Photoshop to get the shadows out of the eyes. And if you want to, or if you have access to one as well, is get an external flash on the top of your camera and just set it on low, just to use a bit of fill flash. But again, you run the risk of flattening out any shadows around the body as well, so use that one carefully. So thank you again for watching, everyone. If you have any questions for me, pop them down in the comment section below. Let me know topics you want to cover, and I need ideas for this and things that are going to be useful to you. So if you like what you're watching, please give me a like and subscribe as well, and definitely more content will be coming up soon.